We need a political revolution in this country.
Everybody claims they can fix the USA, but do you really believe what they say? I know a guy who speaks right from the heart. He's not controlled by the billionaires. Have you seen his crazy cool hair? He's not afraid to stand up for what's right. But he can't do it alone, you know. We've gotta help him fight. We need a man like Bernie Sanders. He's the coolest guy around. He'll turn America's frown upside down. Addressing income inequality. This country ain't no oligarchy. I know a guy who cares about us all. The longest serving independent in the history of Congress. He's got the record of standing for what's right. Oh yeah. But he can't do this alone, you know. We've gotta help him fight. We need a man like Bernie Sanders. He's the coolest guy around. He'll turn America's frown upside down.
We need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. The United States must lead the world in reversing climate change. Child care to higher education must be affordable for all. We're going to pass a constitutional amendment to get rid of Citizens United. Healthcare is a right of all people, not a privilege. We need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We have to end institutional racism. Paid family leave, paid sick time, and paid vacations. We need a progressive tax system. The financial institution is too big to fail, is too big to exist.
Bernie Sanders, he's the coolest guy around. He'll turn America's frown upside down. He'll make the country's frown turn upside down. Turn upside down. Turn upside down. Bernie Sanders.
The only way that change takes place, in my view, is when millions of people stand up and say, enough is enough.
Hello, and welcome to Project Sanity. I am tonight's host, Nis Pedersen, from Denmark,
WikiLeaks
and
is raising
with me today is Progressive Green, or Richard Green. We have quite a show for you today. We are gonna be talking about our relaunch, about our mission statement, about why we want to do what we're doing, and we're gonna be, as always, bringing you the news, both hard news from journalists who are working for media corporations, but also from citizen journalists and independent journalists like Glenn Greenwald and Lee Fang of The Intercept and other newspapers, online newspapers that try and bring you hard news. While we're talking today, if you're watching the show, please use hashtag Project Sanity or hashtag Progressive Army. And please check out the Benjamin Dixon Show, who is so kind to let us live here and leech off his audience while we're starting to find our feet and growing our own audience. And most of all, thank you to David Grossman, Dr. Hyde, and Kelly Bacchus, and many others here at the Progressive Army who does tremendous work every day to make this happen. Activism work. None of us are, as of yet, paid. So thank you to everyone. Before we get into the deep dive of the day, before we get into the mission statement, why we're doing it, and having a deeper discussion about this, we will be bringing you the news. And today's more domestic news will be headed up by Richard Green. Richard, say hi.
Hey everyone, thanks Nis for the introduction, and thanks everyone for joining us here on the Benjamin Dixon Show channel. And make sure to subscribe so you can find when the latest episode of us, Anoa, or any of the other shows that come up on the channel go live, so that you can join us in the chat and be a part of the show. And like Nis said, make sure to use hashtag Project Sanity or hashtag Progressive Army, and so that we can follow along with what you guys are out there tweeting about. And as far as news goes, there's a few things that we wanted to talk about. And I also I guess, before I get into news, I should let you know that I recently had some hardware issues and basically had to reformat my drive and start from scratch. So as far as some of our transitions and some of using this new hardware and settings that are saved in my web browsers and stuff, some of those aren't fine-tuned yet. So as you saw earlier, YouTube's autoplay was still going, and so dealing with little things like that. So bear with us. We're still growing. We're under construction, but we are here to give you the best information and the best quality programming that we can deliver, and that's our goal. So we strive to constantly be improving. Now that I got that through, on the news side, I think we should really start with what's going on in North Carolina. And with what's going on in North Carolina, there's really, I mean, we could do a whole show about what's going on in North Carolina, really. And I just wanted to start with what's been going back and forth between the feds and North Carolina regarding HB2, more commonly known as the bathroom law, and some of what's been going on with that. So essentially, there's been several lawsuits filed. Originally, the Department of Justice threatened to file suit if North Carolina, or file suit for it being unconstitutional if they didn't pull it back. North Carolina didn't, so they filed the suit. And also, since then, North Carolina's also filed suit against the Department of Justice. The State General Assembly is also suing the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice hit back with some harsh words or sharp words from Loretta Lynch. You might have seen them on another program. We're not going to bring them in too much detail now. But essentially, it boiled down to that they created a state-sponsored discrimination against transgender individuals who simply seek to engage in the most private of functions in a place of safety and security. And I think that was very well put, the way she said it, in that this is one of the most private things that people are doing, and most of these bathrooms have stalls anyway for the egregiously, or whatever might be viewed as invasive. And so I think this law is especially unconstitutional, even through the stricter lens that has to be viewed through when looking at constitutionality. Anyway, so there was 2 more lawsuits filed by the same conservative legal organization, the Alliance Defending Freedom, one against the DOJ and one against the DOE. And essentially, it's basically the same thing as what they had in Illinois District 211 last week. And besides that, there's been, so most people have probably seen that there's been some pushback from companies and corporations that do business in North Carolina about if they're going to have this law, then we're not going to want to expand or do a project there, so on and so forth. And along with that, WRAL News reports that they spoke with 11 lobbyists for some of those companies who've been speaking out about how they don't agree with what North Carolina is doing with HB2. And as a result, they've been they say that they've been threatened with retribution, essentially saying that if you keep talking about us out there in the way that you are, that it's going to be hard for your companies to do business in our state, or at least harder, possibly threatening to take away some tax incentives that they have to do business there. And most specifically, the House Majority Leader Mike Hager, who's a vocal supporter of HB2, recently tweeted at a lobbyist, quote, "Wow, I would think with all your negative posts about HB2 that you weren't a lobbyist and didn't have to work with the majority," end quote. And so I think that quote supports what the lobbyists were saying, essentially saying that it's weird to almost feel bad for lobbyists, but essentially when a corporation is actually trying to do the right thing, we have the legislature, which is elected by the people, telling them that, actually, if you keep telling us that what we're doing is wrong, we're going to make it harder for you to do business here. And so, again, it's weird to feel like I'm on the side of a lobbyist, but I could see how various, if a company or corporation wants to do the right thing, if they're getting pressured from the political side of a state to not do the right thing, that has everything askew from, I think, what most progressives kind of view the world through as, and that generally people want to do the right thing and corporations want to do the wrong thing. So I think that there's probably more that could be learned from that in general. There's plenty more to go into what's going on in North Carolina. I mean, for instance, one of the things that particularly stuck out to me was the officer that was charged with shooting a man in the back. Also was recently, the charges were added was obstructing justice, which I think is a really important detail that probably hasn't gotten as much attention as I think it should, in that too often we found that in these cases that the police report, when there is a video, that the police report doesn't match what we see happening in the video. And too often the police are simply judged on whether what they did was illegal or not in the moment of the violence act that happened. But what isn't looked at is what happened in order for the story that came out first to be so different from the story that was actually told by video that was released later. And so, again, I could go on about North Carolina for the whole show, but I wanted to move on to that there was a female pilots are now going to be able to have their ashes placed in Arlington. The female pilots being referenced in the news story from the AP are what are called WASPs, W-A-S-P, and they're women World War II pilots who at the time were considered civilians, but essentially what they did was they flew non-combat missions in order to free up male pilots for combat missions. And for a long time, and just recently it came to the attention of many people that they weren't allowed to have their ashes at Arlington, or they weren't being accepted. And so there was a petition that was signed, and citizens gathered around and made a big stink about it, and got those women that served honorably in that time into their rightful place at Arlington. And so beyond that, I think one of the details I wanted to mention from that was that Arlington Cemetery it's a limited amount of space, and so burial plots are reserved for a much smaller number of active or of soldiers or of military servicemen and women. And so, but the ashes and having like some sort of plaque or something placed, and or that those restrictions are less so, but the women from the WASP were not being allowed, and so now they are. So that's great news. Glad to hear that. Women during World War II did a lot of great work, and I think anything to get them more of the credit that they deserve is a win in my book.
It seems like women in World War II have had a hard time of it. There's been several cases in Europe where women who's been part of resistance movements or served in the army, served in uniform, and they have all, after the fact, been offered civilian awards, marriage badges, and many other things. A very famous French resistance fighter, I can't remember her name, she was offered a civilian, one of the civilian awards, and she refused it, saying there was nothing civil about what I did. So you women, you keep fighting to be recognized for the work you have done, because there is no earthly reason that you don't get recognized. You shouldn't have to fight.
Yep, it is an unfortunate reality that women face, and so shout out to everyone that made that happen, and much appreciation to all the women that have done countless amount of work, not to mention giving birth to all the men that did everything else. So I would say thank you again.
Somewhat of an achievement.
Yeah. You deserve more credit, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, one of the other things that we wanted to talk about was the food deserts. And there's a recent article that came out from Civil Eats by David Lowe and Vijay Das. And in it, they describe some of the issues that we're dealing with food deserts. And they talk about how in 2011, Michelle Obama joined forces with Walmart, Walgreens, Super Value, and they all pledged to open up about 1,500 stores in food deserts. To date, only about 656 stores have been opened and or renovated nationwide, over the last 5 years, but 434 have been closed. So the net gain, we're definitely shy of 1,500. We'll say that. I don't know when the goal for 1,500 was set, how far out that was, but something tells me we're lagging behind.
Being an outsider, explain to me, please, what is a food desert,
Ah,
and how do they happen?
all right. Well, essentially, what a food desert is it has a particular definition. I believe it's no fresh food, like fresh fruits and vegetables, and food products like that within X amount of distance, depending on the traveling source. And I think most of the time it's in cities, and they give it a couple to a few miles. Like, I don't remember off the top of my head, and I don't know if it's listed here in my notes. But essentially, what it means is that it's hard to find access to food. Your closest stores are going to be convenience stores, and you're going to have access to convenience store type food. So things that can sit on the shelf for a month without expiring, and things that are like, your Slurpees and stuff like that type of products. And then whatever grocery store type products they usually have in a refrigerated section, so like a sandwich, some things like that. And so the limited access results, or that's essentially what a food desert is. How food deserts come about, it's a variety of things. It can have to do with zoning at the local level. So how zoning is allowed, whether they allow certain buildings of certain sizes, whether what requirements they have, and those types of things. So a lot of it can be determined at a very, very local level, and down to the city precinct or any of those types of things. But then there's also a larger effect that's happening, which I think the article goes into in more depth, about how these big box superstore grocery outlets, how they've actually presented themselves in the country, around the country. And essentially, and many people have done many stories. There's documentaries out there about how Walmart in particular functions. But essentially what ends up happening is that these places, so I should say, Walmart is actually creating new food deserts where they didn't exist. So out in more rural areas and in impoverished rural areas, what they do is they go in and they move in and sell everything, sometimes at a loss, so that the store actually is losing them money. But the purpose is to drive everybody else out of business, so that nobody else can compete. And they have basically a bottomless margin to mess with, so they can lose money for years without actually it being a drag on their overall bottom line nationwide. And so what they do is they push out the local food providers, the local smaller food stores and stuff like that. And once they've done that, they'll run it for a little while, and then they'll just shut down the Walmart when taxes become unfavorable, because the city or the locality has to renegotiate their tax arrangement, because they've shut down many other tax revenues. And so they lure them in with a sweet tax rate, thinking that they're going to generate all this business and increase all these things. But what they end up doing is having a net negative effect on the local economy when you factor in those tax reductions. And so when they try to bring up the taxes, Walmart says, no, you either leave us where we're at or we're moving. And so they've moved as close as, I think, a few blocks away to be in another jurisdiction, as to avoid the tax rules that were being placed in the new one. So they left an entire, a huge store vacant just to move it over here. Now, that doesn't necessarily create a food desert in that particular situation, but you can see how if they move it 10, 20 minutes away, how you end up with these things. So you have them in low-income, high-density areas, where basically gun store, liquor store, convenience store is all the stores that you're going to find. And you're also starting to find them in other places. Some of the other things that people are doing to resist what's happening is starting co-ops. I know in Olympia there's a great food co-op not far from the Evergreen University campus, and they have a pretty great system there. I see that there was one in North Carolina that Kelly brought to my attention, and that there's several other. And I think Benjamin also did a great interview with Richard Mabian from Kansas. And he's an activist at the intersection of social and environmental justice. And it's a great interview, so go ahead and search it, Richard Mabian, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, on the channel after tonight or another time, and watch that if you want some more details. Sorry, I've been leaving you on screen there, Nis. I didn't mean to do that to you, but I will. Let's see here. The next news story we had that we wanted to cover. I want to just mention the city of Baltimore. There's a story out there about the election results being decertified by the Board of Elections. It appears that it's about absentee ballots and possibly some provisional ballots, some being counted that shouldn't have, some not being counted that should have. The proportions seem relatively low. The numbers I saw in the article were in between 100 and 1,000, so it's not going to change any major electoral news, but it is interesting that they did take note of the irregularities and are further investigating them. It'll be interesting to see what the results of that are. One of the other things we wanted to mention was about the EPA recently came out with some new regulations regarding all future oil and natural gas wells. Important to notice that they're saying all future oil and gas wells. It's not going to impact anything that already exists. And in there's a lot of information kind of hidden. And so essentially the main thing that I pulled out of it, and with help from our back room, is that they are almost essentially ignoring that there's been such a huge increase. Many people might have saw the story in California where the fracking well had gotten basically uncapped and was spewing methane into the atmosphere. If you've watched people or documentaries like Gasland and the documentarian from that, you'll know that methane escaping from these fracking wells is absolutely devastating. So while the natural gas that we burn in order to, or that we extract from there, that we burn, may be cleaner than something like oil or coal, but the process in which we extract it, people notice an oil spill. You know, you spill a few 100,000 gallons somewhere, people are going to notice. But if you just leak tens, hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of methane or other gases from these fracking things into the atmosphere, other than the people and plant life in the immediate area that may get nauseous and or die off, it's very easy to not notice the huge plumes because they're invisible and often odorless. And so it's very important that we keep our mind and our attention on the EPA and what they're doing and what we need to do in order to okay, sorry, I apologize. I haven't been able to have all of my windows where they would normally be, so I've been missing some communication. But that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Did you have anything you wanted to add on the EPA thing there, Nis?
Yes, I was actually about to type it in chat. We have a good amount of viewers at the moment. It's been bigger and can get bigger, but we have a good amount of viewers, and they're talking about the problem with with fracking, and previous to that they were talking about Walmart. And the problem with fracking is that the wells are lined with concrete. Now, this concrete is, of course, produced by everyone's favorite supplier of all things natural gas and oil and coal, Halliburton. And an engineer from Halliburton has whistleblown that all wells, not a percentage of them, all wells, their concrete lining fail within 5 years. Within 5 years, they start cracking. And I think it's about a quarter of them, if I remember correctly. You'll have to check that out. So if research can back me up, please give me the number. But I think it's about a quarter of them that fail within the first year. That which then lets this gas escape into the air outside of the well's control.
Into the water too, or
often into the water too, which is why people can set their water ablaze. And the problem is our own Dr. Hyde, who does research for us in PA, she lives near one of these wells, which is giving her quite a lot of health problems. And I was told by her that recently the area she lives in, they banned by law all fracking wells, which prompted an immediate response from the state assembly banning all laws banning fracking wells. I'm not kidding you. It's a banana republic. It's insane. When Texas first started bringing in these wells, there was an area that was hard hit by this, and their water was undrinkable. It was poison, like making Flint look like Flint is on a larger scale because more people live them. Sorry, Dr. Hyde. She lives near 5 active wells. That's 5 active wells, and so in Texas, there was this area where they first found out of the problem with the water, and the governor of Texas sent in a person from his administration to check it out. And he went back to the governor and said, no matter whose fault this is, these people need water, and they need it now. We have to create a water pipeline and supply these people with water right now. And the governor actually, to begin with, backed this idea. But then the gas companies, they started a PR campaign saying that this was state overreach, and what about local solution? This was growing the government, and why should your money be spent on this problem? This is locally and has nothing to do with anything. And then the natural gas companies started talking about backing someone else for governor in the next election. At the same time, they also offered the current governor money. So all of a sudden, the bill to provide this area with water went away. So that's my take on fracking. I can give you a European take on it as well. As you know, Hillary, as you should know, I would rather say, Hillary, when she was in the State Department, she made a tiger team of over 20 people focused on selling natural gas to the world. She lobbied the EU, while the EU was making protection laws to protect civilians and water supplies and local communities and cities from pollution. And while this law was being written, they were being lobbied relentlessly by the gas industry, but also by the US State Department and Hillary Clinton's people. And they put in some provisions there that made it illegal for a city. If a city had first asked a company to do a exploratory drilling and an assessment on whether or not there was something to be gathered there, and also alongside that, they have to do an assessment of how much it would pollute. If the town then, after having allowed that, then didn't want to allow them to set up shop permanently because they didn't believe the report or because they had done their own report, they could not prohibit them from drilling, because that would be, there was all sorts of reasons given, including profits and other things. And this little clause completely wrecked the entire anti-pollution bill, which resulted in a French fracking company eyeing Denmark. Now, Denmark is clay underground with the cleanest, freshest water you find anywhere. When I first visited the United States and I tasted chlorine in the water, I was shocked, because to me, that only happens in third world countries. You only taste chlorine in third world countries because, of course, civilized countries have completely clean water. Why wouldn't they? So we're very proud of that, and I'm very happy about our water. So the prospect of natural gas companies coming to Denmark was not well received. And then we found out about this provision in the regulatory law, and that this company, now that it had been invited in, could not be forced to leave unless this little tiny city of Denmark was willing to take on a multi-billion-dollar international natural gas company that makes more a year, I'm pretty sure, than the entire state of Denmark. Yeah.
That would make it.
Thanks, Hillary.
Yeah, that's progressive gets things done.
Yep.
Like destroying drinkable water around the world. At least try. Anywho.
Sorry about my pontificating.
Oh no, not a problem. I appreciate the intel. I did just want to mention, kind of on the environmental tip, West Virginia Federal Appeals Court rejected a bid Thursday by Massey Energy's former CEO, Don Blankenship, to remain free. And it's essentially what he's there for, or on trial for, was basically ignoring safety rules and regulations, suggestions, recommendations, all those types of things, resulting in 29 miners losing their lives. And so the people, he's up to a year in prison or jail, and then a fine of $250,000. A lot of the families don't think that that's enough, but they are happy to see that at least something is happening, and not just a fine. At least somebody is going to have to at least go stay in probably a very fancy prison for at least a year, maybe house arrest for 6 months or something. Some sort of punishment is coming. But as you can see, blatant disregard for the safety regulations and rules, like we were talking about the EPA applying towards fracking, resulted in 29 people dying, and the punishment for the person that they view as responsible, who's viewed as a micromanager, who was very into every single little detail of every mining operation he was running. That guy got 1 year and $250,000. Fine. Just keep that in mind next time you see somebody getting a few years for, something not as significant.